Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the approach. We've done quite a bit on learning the basic techniques, some different ways to cheat your opponent to be able to win the fight. But today we're going to be talking about closing in, that first action before the fight actually begins. And this, I would say, is probably the most important part of the fight. So let's take a look at a couple of things that will help you on your approach. So this right here is my opponent. There's a head right here, there's a sword right here. Now this is going to be the primary guard that your opponent is going to be taking, that long guard, point forward, coming at me, waiting to engage with my weapon. So looking at my sword, I'm going to assume my stance. Let's say we're taking a nice wide stance to begin. This right here, we're starting fairly close. So most fights aren't going to start at this distance. They're going to start a lot more at this distance. We're going to call this in measure. So I am right here at the end of my measure, and I'm looking down at my opponent. Measure being, if I make one step, I can come in, close the distance, and hit my opponent, but we're not quite far enough that I can reach out and just tag him like that. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is where their sword is pointed, because in any fight, we are having, your opponent has a say. So looking here at your opponent's blade, it is right here at me. If I decide to engage with my opponent and run up in there, you can see it's going to tag me right in the face. So, well, duh, John, well, what do you do? So we talked briefly about that triangle step a few videos ago. So let's practice that, just kind of going whoop, whoop. And you can see, now their blade is somewhere off over here. And they don't have the ability to attack me straight on. They have to adjust their position to get to me. And that's a tempo. Keep that word in mind as we go. So again, they're looking at me. I can triangle step out of the way, and now he can't see me. So as long as their point is offline, they can't immediately attack me without doing something. So if I am engaging with my opponent, the first thing that I'm going to want to do is either get that point out of the way or step offline. So stepping offline, boop, boop. Now they're going to try and adjust their position of the sword to come and attack me. So I need to engage that sword in such a manner that they can't push back immediately. And if I'm really good, I can strike over and hit them in the head. So stepping offline is one. Second, another way to approach this, other than stopping offline, is you can overpower their sword. We need to gain a mechanical advantage over their blade in order to make it so they can't attack us back in this first attack. So let's say I am adjusting, perhaps they are advancing on me. I can take it and do what's called a shield how, which is a more advanced technique. Cut down the flat of their blade, so now it's pushed way out there, and my point is right in there to make that stab. So to recap on that approach, what we're looking for is either a step offline and a cover, or a beat down. Whoop, I missed. Don't do that, it'll get stabbed. Beat down of your opponent's sword in order to engage that point into their face. So again, we are here. They have a point forward guard. My guard is pretty much anywhere. I like guard of the woman, just like that. Now let's say they have a guard that's facing downward. Now this is a very deceptive guard. You can see that he has a very strong ability to cut upwards. This is boar's tooth that we were talking about in our original videos. He can cut very strongly upwards this way to displace my blade, meaning cutting that, knocking my blade apart, and then he has the ability to engage at that point. Or he has the ability to just stab up underneath as I approach. He probably doesn't want to do that because I can hit him, but we need to make sure that we are covered from that. Now he can cut very strongly upwards towards my center of mass right here, so I need to engage that point, or I need to hit him in such a manner that he can't attack me. Now one thing to keep in mind is when your sword is towards the ground, you've cut back your range quite significantly. I can't go nearly as far this way as I can cutting from above this way. So, one of the master cuts that the Germans talk about is what's called a Scheitelhau. We can cut very swiftly up at the top, at their head, and get out of range in such a manner that their sword can't hit me. Usually it works best with a step offline, whoop, whoop, Scheitelhau right to the head. And if I'm really quick, I can get out before they have the opportunity to attack me back. And then I put my sword in such a position to defend whatever they would be doing. So this right here is my opponent again. You can see we have just an old fencing mask that I'm using to demonstrate this technique. Sword is down, I'm over here. Their sword is angled up towards my center of mass. I need to step offline and then snipe a quick cut to the head before they have any opportunity to hit me. And you'll see when I struck this cut, whoop, I went to the side of the face right here. Because this cut, this little sniping cut, is not going to be nearly as powerful as a big overhow or a fendente if you're doing the Italian. It's not going to be nearly as powerful as that because it's more of a little strike off the top of the head and then getting out of range. That should at least have some opportunity to stun your opponent. And then, hopefully you'll have the ability to hit them back right after that in a more fatal way. So again, looking at my opponent, sword is down, I step offline, their guard is low, my guard goes high, and I can smack them. Now let's say I have a very good opponent. They see that I've gone into that high guard to try and offend them off of their low guard, and so they bring their point back up saying, hey, if you cut at me, I'm going to stab you. So we need to deal with that point again. We talked about stepping offline. We talked about cutting down the flat of their blade. We can also, with this type of a technique, do what's called a Krumpau. And a Krumpau is, a lot of people say, the best how. It's another German master cut. But basically what it is if their point is forward, they don't have the ability to chop down at you. They have to pull back before they cut. So I can gain a mechanical advantage, starting in what's called a lower guard. We can have it from the right or from the left. If you have this lower guard that we talked about being I forget the Italian word, dang it, down here, we can have this to the side, or we can even bring it out front into what's called a Schrankut guard. Now that's another German word, but they're kind of the purveyor of a lot of these master cuts. So their guard is forward facing. I can take this, I'm going to windshield wiper towards the front, kind of cutting with the false edge towards my opponent's sword, and I can do what's called the Krumpau and immediately attack my opponent. Because their sword has gone way out, we can put that over there, and then I'm going to want to make sure that my guard comes out in such a manner that I can block whatever they're going to be doing. So I'll show you one more time. Let's get my opponent back up and running. My opponent did not pass the check today. So again, looking at my opponent here, we drop into this guard, a tail guard, in either the Italian or the German system. We can bring that out front into what's called a Schrankut, and I'm going to be a counter-stepping, kind of that grapevine step to the outside, and I can cut down at their sword to be able to gain that mechanical advantage, and this can come very powerfully, cutting down, and then whipping around and striking my opponent before they have a chance to react. And that can be a very powerful cut. Coming all the way in, placing that, and then I can do a stab, keeping that sword on the outside of my guard. So that's a pretty good way to approach. If you can land that Krumpau, doing that cut down your opponent's sword, you can make some very powerful cuts over the top to help overpower your opponent with that other master cut. So again, we talked about a couple of master cuts. I wouldn't focus too much on these, just kind of getting the idea of the mechanics down. First, counter step, Shielhau, cutting down the flat of their blade, over the top, keeping their sword on the outside. Shielhau, Scheitelhau, if their point is down low, coming out, striking over the top. Or, if you're really good, Krumpau. So I hope that these lessons were a little bit useful to you guys when you're thinking about that approach coming against your opponent. As we focus more on these how to fight with a longsword videos, we're going to be focusing a lot more on once you get into the fight, what's going on. And we'll obviously review some things that we talked about in previous videos. But keep in mind these three master cuts as we work on that approach, that immediate clash of swords. And if you can master that, you'll beat pretty much anyone in a fight. And if you look at some of the more professional humanists, they constantly are doing these master cuts. Next time we'll be talking a lot more about this workout, cutting horizontally at the head, overcoming your opponent, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other master cuts, as well as something called winding. So, look forward to that over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, thanks for joining the channel. Please like and subscribe. Let me know if there's any techniques that you'd like to see or demonstrated. And yeah, any suggestions are always welcome. Thanks so much for bringing me out today, and we'll see you next time.
shadows play. Dragons rise at break of day. Hammers echo through the mist. Twilight whispers magic kiss.